I'm going to ask everyone to quiet down, please. We're ready to get started. If I can have everyone quiet down, please. Thank you so much. Good morning. That was pretty good. Let's try it one more time. Good morning. Oh, that's beautiful, beautiful. This is Wednesday, and there's a lot of excitement in here. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. My name is Janelle Dean, and I am the Community Engagement Manager for KPBS, and we are so excited to present to you today the 2024 One Book, One San Diego. Gosh, get it together, Janelle. One Book, One San Diego Kids Selection Author and Illustrator of Barrio Rising. We have a big audience today. So we are here live at Marston Middle School with 7 or 8 classrooms from across San Diego Unified School District. Welcome, everyone. All right. And we are live streaming this event. So we have a lot of your friends from across San Diego and across the border in Mexico joining us today. So welcome everyone out there tuning in today to this beautiful program. I want to ask all of you here at Marston, if you have a cell phone, please turn it off or silence it. And if you're on the Wi-Fi, if you could turn that off as well, because, we're using some limited Wi-Fi today. We want to make sure everything works properly. Thank you so much. All right. So a little bit about One Book, One San Diego. One Book, One San Diego has been alive and thriving for 18 years. It's a partnership between KPBS, which a lot of you know because you probably have watched some PBS Kids shows growing up. Anyone Daniel Tiger fans? Or Clifford, the Big Red Dog? Arthur, yes. So that's KPBS. And we partner with the San Diego Public Library, which has many, many branches across our region, and the San Diego County Library, which also has a lot of branches. We work with many other libraries as well across San Diego, lots of nonprofit organizations, and of course, schools and districts as well. So we welcome all of our partners. We thank you for the extended partnership. But every year we get to select a kid's book, a teen's book, an adult book, and books in Spanish, oftentimes the same books, just translated in Spanish. And we get to share these books with all of you, get you reading and discussing and enjoying the books. And we invite the authors and illustrators right here to San Diego to engage with you all around the books and get everyone talking about some very important topics. These are our sponsors. One Book, One San Diego would not be possible without our sponsors. We're completely, fully sponsored and dependent upon the funding that comes in. So thank you very much to all of our sponsors. And these are the partners that I was just telling you about. So we have many, many partners across the region that help to make our program happen and get books in all of your hands. So we distribute, I think this year we distributed over 8,000 books in total. So thank you to all of our sponsors and partners for allowing us to make that happen each year. All right. Well, I mentioned today we're partnering with the San Diego Unified School District. We are lucky and very fortunate to have a video welcoming all of you from the interim superintendent of the San Diego Unified School District. Here it is.
Bienvenidos a todos. Hello, everyone. I'm your proud interim superintendent, Dr. Fabiola Bagula. I'm thrilled to welcome you to our One Book, One San Diego event featuring Barrio Rising, the protest that built Chicano Park. This book holds a special place in my heart, reminding me of my own childhood in San Diego, where I witnessed the power of community action firsthand. Barrio Rising embodies our district's core values of inclusion, belonging, and thriving. It shows us that when we come together, cuando nos unimos, we can move mountains, or in this case, create parks. The story of Chicano Park is a testament to the strength of our diverse community. It teaches us that our voices matter, that peaceful protests can lead to positive change, and that our cultural heritage is something to be celebrated. As we read this book together, I want you to remember that you are the future leaders of our community. Your ideas, your passion, and your determination can shape our city, just like the young activists did in this story. So let's dive into this inspiring tale, and as we do, let's keep pushing forward, siempre para adelante, with the knowledge that we will have the power to make a difference. Juntos somos más fuertes. Together, we are stronger. Enjoy the book and let it inspire you to create positive change in your own neighborhoods. Adelante con fuerza y esperanza.
Thank you very much to Dr. Bagala for the welcome and introduction. Now I have the pleasure of introducing and bringing up who you all are here to see and hear from today. María Dolores Águila, the author of the 2024 One Book, One San Diego Kids Selection, Barrio Rising, and Magdalena Mora, the illustrator of Barrio Rising. Welcome.
Good morning. I am so excited to be here with you guys. I'm sorry I'm not going to be able to sit down. I am a very fidgety, wiggly person, so I kind of have to stand. But I can't tell you how excited I am to see all these faces here and have this conversation about Barrio Rising. And I can't tell you guys what an amazing thing it is to have Magdalena Mora here with us today. If you guys didn't know, Magdalena is a Pure Belpre Honor Illustrator, okay? So she's big, okay? So I'm so excited that she's here. Today, we're gonna talk about Barrio Rising, and we're gonna go from the idea of Barrio Rising to how it became a book. So let's get started. Okay, that's me. Oops, there we go. So if no one has told you today, I am so glad that you are here with us today. I'm María Dolores Águila. I am a Chicana poet and author from San Diego. So here's the plan. We're gonna talk about my writing journey. We're gonna go over a little bit of Barrio Logan history. We're gonna talk about Maggie's story, and then we're gonna read Barrio Rising, and then we're gonna do a Q&A. So a long time ago, I was just a kid that loved to read. My dad worked in construction and my mom cleaned houses. Both of my parents did not graduate high school, and we lived in National City. There was not a lot of money for a lot of things, especially something like books. So I would not be the author before you without being a girl who just loved the library. Libraries have this huge, important place in my heart because it was a magic place to me. You could get a library card and read a book that would take you across time and space anywhere, the past, the present, the future. To me, that was magic. But I noticed something about the books that I read. There wasn't a kid in the story that looked like me, a Chicana kid. And I wondered, can a kid like me not go to Hogwarts? Is a door for Narnia not going to open for me? And it made me think, is my story not important enough to be in a book? And being the person that I am, I was like, all right, I'm going to fix this. I am going to go home and I'm going to write a novel. And so I was 10 years old and I was like, all right, here we go, right? It turned out to be so much harder than I ever could have imagined. And because of my background, with my parents not graduating high school, working in construction, cleaning houses, there was no one there for me to guide me on how to do something like pursue a creative career. So even though it was my biggest dream to become an author, I kind of put it in my back pocket. And, I kind of stopped trying. The first time that I ever saw myself in a book was when I read this book in 7th grade, The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. I think I was almost 11 or 12, and I went from just loving books to becoming obsessed because this was the first time that I had ever seen someone with my experience on the pages. And it was just like a transformative moment for me. And it also led me to find other authors like Victor Villaseñor, Gary Soto, Rudolfo Anaya. It made me an author because it was like, okay, they wrote a book about their experiences. I'm going to be able to do it as well. And funny story, when I read this book in 7th grade, we were reading it together in a class read. And I knew my parents really didn't have a lot of money. So when the class read was over and we were supposed to turn in the books, I waited until everyone else got up to turn in their book, and I closed my book and I stuck it in my backpack. So I still have that book, in my closet. But I gave up my ways of thieving books, and now we're here. I also didn't know that much about Chicano history. What I had learned was about Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta and the great boycotts, but that was about it. I didn't know anything that had happened in my own neighborhood. And remember, I live in National City. I am right below Barrio Logan. I passed by the murals, but I never understood how they got there. So, as I mentioned, I am just a girl from National City. I went to National City, Sweetwater High School, and then I went to Southwestern College, which is a community college. There was no one in my life to guide me from getting to high school to like a 4-year college, or from community college to a 4-year college. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just took a bunch of random classes because I thought it sounded interesting. And I just kind of spent a lot of time doing nothing, really. I wish I could tell you that like I pulled it together and I went to SDSU or UCSD, but I didn't. I just kind of stopped going. But just because I was down, it doesn't mean that I was out. So I went out and I got a job. And even though the dream of being an author seemed absolutely impossible, I kept going. So years later, I'm 29 years old, and I was driving down Cesar Chavez Parkway when I drove by this mural. I had driven by this mural thousands of times, but for some reason that day when I saw it, I was like, who is that? Why would someone paint a mural of them? And so this is Laura Rodriguez, one of the founders of Chicano Park, and when I went home that night and I Googled her story, I was like, what? I was like, in shock of what she had done to be part of the founding of Chicano Park. So I became fascinated by Laura's story. It was a real life Cinderella story. And when she was in her 60s and she was an abuelita, she lay down in front of a bulldozer to stop the construction of the CHP substation. And I found that to be such an incredible feat for someone of her age and time that I just had to learn everything that I could about Barrio Logan. It led to 5 years of research. I chased down everything I could find about Barrio Logan. I read books, newspaper articles, I watched documentaries, I listened to songs, I studied the murals, I went to any conference that people were having about it, and I just learned everything that I could. And I want to share a little video with you that just shares a little bit about the history of Barrio Logan.
Chicano Park, you might find yourself in the middle of a cultural event.
At Chicano Park, you might find yourself in the middle of a cultural event, surrounded by food, dance, and music, all of which represents Barrio Logan. If you walk through the park, you can admire dozens of highway pillars covered in colorful murals, each one painting the stories and the struggles of
Park Museum and Cultural Center.
There's also the Chicano Park Museum and Cultural Center. Both are used to keep every inch of the Barrio Logan Chicano history alive.
Chicano Park is 54 years old, and so it was always a prideful thing to be a part of.
Alberto Pulido grew up in Barrio Logan and is now the vice chair of the museum, a cultural hub that supports Chicano and Latino artists. Most recently, the exhibition focused on immigrant families.
Like the art show in here today features the challenges around immigrant communities, the issues around surviving the border crossings, the butterflies behind me representing a life without borders.
The museum's art and history changes through each exhibition. The Chicano murals stay focused on the difficulties difficulties that came with making the park happen.
That's what this neighborhood's about. That's what we always think about. You know, this neighborhood was destroyed when Interstate 5 and the Coronado Bay Bridge went through, where 75% of the neighborhood was lost.
In the 1970s, the Logan Heights community and Chicano groups fought for this park after stopping the erosion of their neighborhood and cultural history.
But
The
leaders at the
community
time
back
had
then
plans
had
to
been
build a
promised
highway
a park.
patrol
The
station
leaders at the
instead.
time had plans
It's
to
why
build a
Chicano
highway
Park and the
patrol
Chicano
station
Park
instead.
Museum are
It's why
important to the
Chicano
Latino
Park and the
Chicano
Chicano Park
families.
Museum
It pays
are important to
respect
the
to the
Latino and
protests that
Chicano
led to the park's
families. It pays
creation.
We
respect to
have
the protests that led to the
intergenerational
park's
knowledge and
creation.
power,
We have
and it was really the community
intergenerational knowledge
across
and
all
power,
ages that came
and it was
together
really the community
and
across
activated the
all ages
space
that came
for
together
themselves, because this
and
is, you know,
activated
again,
the
their
space
park.
for
Since then, the
themselves, because
community
this
has
is,
taken
again,
pride
their
for the
park.
park.
Since then, the community has taken pride for the park. The newer generation has pursued careers in doing just that, like Valerie Jaimes, who has become an advocate for Barrio Logan.
My main objective really is to serve and to make sure that I'm honoring the people before me, honoring what has, the struggles that have transpired from the movimiento, and how I can support and really uplift our youth and our generations to come.
Making sure that debates like gentrification or erosion do not continue in their community of Barrio Logan. Regina Urita, CBS 8.
So I love that video because it shows you how the park used to look. So after I learned all this information, I went home and I was like, all right, I'm ready to share this story. I'm going to come home and I'm going to write it, right? So I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I thought it was a masterpiece, right? I sent it out to see if anybody would be interested in publishing. Guess what happened? I got more than 60 rejections over 5 years. No one wanted the story. And it was a bit of a shock to me because I was like, wow, this story is so important to my community, to my neighborhood. Why is no one interested in it? And it turns out that publishing is a lot harder than it seems, especially if you're coming into it from a background that's never done that before. So I had to regroup. I had to figure out what was going wrong, why no one was responding to my stories, and what I needed to do to change that. So remember, I didn't go to a traditional college. So I had to learn on my own about story structure, about critique and rejection, about revisions, and I had to adopt a growth mindset. Story structure. You guys learn about that in school. You know that a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But what else do stories have? You have to have a character's motivation. You have to know what a character wants versus what a character needs. What's the difference between Act 1, Act 2, Act 3? These are all things that I had to learn in order to make my stories better. I also had to learn how to take critiques and rejections. Sharing your work is hard. Getting feedback is even harder. And someone not liking your story is the absolute hardest because you've poured yourself out into this work, and to have someone not respond to you the way that you would like, it's hard. And then you have to figure out when someone gives you a criticism, like if you think that there's merit to it, or if you think, it just doesn't align with what you're thinking. So these are all things that you have to figure out when you're writing. I also had to learn about revisions. I know you guys know about doing like a rough draft and a final draft, but in between, there's like a whole world of revisions where you have structural edits, which are big pieces of the story you need to change. You have developmental edits, which are like themes and characters. You have line edits where you do the flow of language, and then you have copy edits, which is like the polishing of grammar and syntax and stuff like that. This is all stuff that I had to teach myself. But the most important thing that I had to teach myself was the difference in mindset. I used to have a fixed mindset. I thought, I'm a good writer. I don't think I can get any better. This is kind of the limit that I'm at. But I should have adopted a growth mindset from the very beginning, because in a growth mindset, you know that if you practice and you keep trying, you're going to get better. And this is what helped me the most. So when we brought all this together, Even though I wasn't getting the results that I wanted, I knew that if I kept trying, I would eventually get there. So, I learned how to take breaks. I surrounded myself with supportive people, and I believed in myself. But I made myself a promise. I said, if I could not be the best writer, I would be the hardest working one. I would outwork anybody. If they were going to give up at a certain point, I was going to keep going, because that's what I can do. I might not be the best, but I will work the hardest. And eventually, I got a literary agent, and my book went out. And when that book went out, I got a 2-book deal. They said, not only will we publish Barrio Rising, we'll publish something else. For me, it was a moment I'll never forget when I got the phone call when they told me that they were going to publish me. It was incredible, and it took me so long, but I wouldn't take any moment back. It took what it took, and that's just how it is. So this led to my debut picture book that I wrote, Barrio Rising, which was illustrated by the fabulous Magdalena Mora. And this book led to other things. I can't tell you the best thing about Barrio Rising, because there's so many, but I think the best thing is the connection with my community. I love talking about Barrio Rising, and I love hearing from people that this is a story I didn't know about, and I live in San Diego. Like, it's been so incredible to connect with the community. So, if I hadn't adopted that mindset and made all those changes, I wouldn't be here with you today. And so I hope that if you guys want something, that you will be willing to work as hard for it. And now we're going to go to Magdalena's part of the presentation.
All right. Good morning, everyone. I can't figure out how to take the mic out of the stand, so I'm going to sit. That's okay. My name is Magdalena Mora. Oops. Here we go. And I just want to say thank you all so much. Something that people don't often know is that authors and illustrators rarely get the chance to meet in person or collaborate on a book. And this is the first time I'm meeting Maria. I met her for the first time last night. And so it's an incredible honor to be here, to meet Maria, to meet all of you, and to visit the place that this story is about. I'll just spend a few minutes kind of talking about me as a child, because part of my job is drawing pictures, but the biggest part is thinking about children and childhood, my childhood, other kids' childhood. So I always like to kind of go way back in time to when I was probably a little younger than most of you in the audience. But I was a twin. Is anyone in here a twin? A few. Yeah, I was a twin. I was also really, really shy. Spanish was my first language. English was my second. And so I always felt very uncomfortable with words, with speaking, sometimes with writing. But what I loved to do more than anything was to read and to draw. Can I get a show of hands? How many people love to read or to tell stories? That can mean writing them, that can mean telling your stories to friends. All right, how many people love to draw? A lot. Yeah, I was like a lot of you all. I love to draw, and part of the reason why I love to do that is because when words felt like they failed me, drawing felt like a way for me to tell my story and to communicate in other ways. These are some photos of the neighborhood that I grew up in Chicago. It's called Pilsen. Like Barrio Logan, it's a mostly Mexican-American neighborhood. And like Barrio Logan and like Chicano Park, it is filled with murals. And I think I attribute growing up in this neighborhood to a large part of why I wanted to become an artist. When you're surrounded by art, you walk by it every day. This was the train station I got on and off at when I would go to school. I think you can't really help but have art become a part of your DNA when you are surrounded by it. So these are some of the things that I loved as a kid. That's my brother. I loved my brother usually. I loved pigs. I loved the story Charlotte's Web. Has anyone here read Charlotte's Web? Yeah, a bunch of you. You know, there's a character called Wilbur who's a pig, And I really felt a deep connection to that story. And so when I was your age, I drew pigs. I drew them kind of obsessively. And most of you in this audience probably won't recognize the thing on the left, but that is a Polly Pocket. So I loved playing with things in miniature. Things that I hated, if you have a sibling, you don't always love your sibling. Sometimes, I hated mayonnaise. We grew up in Texas where they put mayonnaise on everything and there were possums running around. So those are some things that I just, really terrified me and still kind of do. And then I hated brushing my hair. I've got a lot of it. I've always had a lot of it, and it was always kind of a rat's nest. And so I hated brushing my hair. These are some of the things that I did. I love to play with dolls. No one in my family drives, and so we would take the bus and the trains everywhere. And so I love to look out the windows and look at my neighborhood and look at different neighborhoods. And then I cried a lot. Does anyone here remember crying a lot when they were little? Yeah, sometimes you've just got a lot of emotions and you don't know what to do with them except just to cry about it. Sometimes you still cry about it. Yeah, I still cry a lot. But mostly the thing that I loved to do best, or the thing that I loved to do most of all, was to read and to enter the worlds and the stories of other authors, of other children, of other characters. This was the first book that I ever wrote and illustrated when I was 8 years old. Is anyone in here 8 years old? A few? Yeah, so when I was about your age over there in the back, this was the first book. And I do really count this as a book that I wrote and illustrated. And then these are just a few of the books that I've illustrated now. I have illustrated 8 books. 7 are out in the world, including Barrio Rising, which we'll read in just a minute. And it has really just been one of the great joys of my life to meet kids like you, to think about your stories, and to write and illustrate books for you and about you, about all of your complexities, your joys, the things you're scared of, and how you live your life. So with that, I think we'll hand it over to Maria.
Okay, so we are going to read Barrio Rising together. One of the things that I always envisioned about Barrio Rising was that it was going to be an interactive experience. So I want to go through these phrases with you because we're going to shout them out later when we're reading it. Okay, so let's go through and practice them. The first one is Parque sí, policía no. And we're going to do that together on 3. 1, 2, 3. Parque sí, policía no. Okay, awesome. Let's go to the next one. It's El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. We're going to do that on 3. On 3. 1, 2, 3. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. Amazing. The next one. The next one is Viva el Barrio. So we're going to do that on 3. 1, 2, 3. Viva el barrio! Awesome. The next one is Si se puede. Can we do that on 3? On 3. On 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Si se puede. Oh my God. Okay. And the last one is Hasta la Bahía. So we're going to do that on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hasta la Bahía. Amazing. All right. I think we are ready to read Barrio Rising. Okay. Barrio Rising, the protest that built Chicano Park, written by María Dolores Águila, illustrated by Magdalena Mora. Down by the bay, past the tortilleria and near the iglesia, Mommy and I live in a little casita. Jacaranda blossoms snap underfoot as we walk to the tiendita to buy masa and corn husks for tamales. One of the vecinos, our neighbor Salvador, sits on the curb, pencil dancing across his sketchbook. When we get closer, I see he's drawn the Coronado Bridge stretching over the bay from Barrio Logan. a diesel truck comes barreling down the narrow street, sending up clouds of dirt and dust. We cover our eyes as it passes by. Doña Lora putters around her porch, tending to potted plants with a shiny metal watering can. She smiles when Mommy and I wave. Buenos dias, I yell over the roar of cars racing on the freeway, but I don't think she hears me. I brush my fingertips along the youngest chain link fence. When the junkyard dogs come snarling, I start to run, but Mommy stops me and says, be brave, Elena, sé valiente. She squeezes my hand when we turn the corner. Mija, look! Across the street, earth movers stand still as statues, surrounded by the massive pillars of the bridge. They're finally building the park, I shout, following Mommy into the tiendita. Do you think it will have swings? A slide? I hope so, Mommy says. We've been asking for a long time. I daydream about the park as I help Mommy look for corn husks. The tiendita is packed with people buying milk, fruit, and pan dulce. I hold the masa while we wait in line when the shop door crashes open. Everyone stares at our vecino Mario, standing there, struggling to catch his breath. They're not building a park. It's a police station, he pants. We've got to stop them. For a moment, I can't think. Mommy's face drops and my heart sinks into my stomach. But then I remember what she said earlier, and a small flame flickers to life inside of me. Mommy, we have to be valiente. She stares at me. I push my shoulders back and stand tall. Should we go see what's happening, she asks. I nod. The construction site is full of men in hard hats and police with squawking radios. I see Salvador, Doña Lora, and Mario there too. We join hands with our vecinos in a chain around the earth movers. Pequeñitos like me to viejitos like Doña Lora walk in a circle around them. The construction workers laugh at us. This will never be a park, one of them scoffs. Doña Lora breaks away and marches toward the bulldozers. When she lies down in front of them to protest, my knees start to tremble. She looks like a jacaranda blossom beneath the jaws of a giant metal machine. But Doña Lora is valiente, and her bravery fans the small flame inside of me into a fire. This fire catches the hearts of los vecinos around me, inspiring us to stand our ground. We will build this park ourselves if we must. That night, red and blue lights chase each other round and round as a police officer bellows through a megaphone. We order you to disperse immediately. Okay, Parque sí, policía no on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Parque sí, policía no.
This is an unlawful assembly. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. Our gritos echo upward, bouncing off the pillars and pylons, taking on a life of their own. Every day for a week, Mommy and I cook enormous ollas full of rice, beans, and tamales to nourish the vecinos building our park. Some work the land with picks and shovels. Others plant nopales, agave, and flowers. The boldest of our neighbors become los líderes, the ones who stand up to the city officials and police when they order us to go home. As the sun sets, I sit next to Mommy and listen to the vecinos' stories of everything we've lost. The beach where sunlight sparkled across the dappled metal surface of the bay, vecindarios fractured into factions, quiet streets overrun with diesel trucks trailing gray exhaust. My dream of a park starts floating away on the salty bay breeze, chilling me through my jacket, and I rest my head on Mommy's shoulder. At dusk, as the fog creeps in and hides us in an inky, dreamy darkness, something changes. People trickle in one by one, then pour out of dusty, beat-up cars and buses. They come from barrios nearby, like National City and Otay Mesa, and from as far away as Los Angeles and Santa Barbara. Everyone is smiling and laughing. It's almost like a party. Mommy and I offer them water, blankets, and food. Together, we are a Barrio Rising. After 12 days of protests, there's a meeting at Lowell Elementary where I go to school. The buildings are dark and silent except for the bright lights blazing from the auditorium where people are filing in. I don't recognize my school. There's a fluttery feeling in my stomach. The city officials who told us to go home stand near the stage. A man in a fancy suit starts to speak. As you already know, the land under the bridge is not going to be a park. It's going to be a police station. His words are cut short when we raise our voices in protest. The man glares at us and clenches his jaw. My vecino Salvador stands up. We are going to turn the pylons into things of beauty, he says. We will never give up. The room erupts. We stamp our feet and shout, and on three, we're gonna do Viva el Barrio. 1, 2, 3. Viva el Barrio! The city officials huddle together. One of them, whom Mommy says is Councilman Leon Williams, waves his hands around while he pleads to the others. What will it take? Will we ever get a park? Don't we deserve one? Questions slither around my mind like serpents, and my eyes begin to fill with tears, until a little voice whispers, Valiente. I grab Mommy's hand and hold on. Councilman Leon Williams steps forward to speak. For 12 days, the people of Barrio Logan have taken over the land under the bridge, he says. I have explained to the other officials that this neighborhood has found their power and I support their struggle. Because of this, the state and city agree. Mommy squeezes my hand tight. The land will be a park. For just a moment, silence. Then my feet are dancing to the music of Mommy's laughter. My hands are clapping along to the thunderous applause. My heart is touched by Doña Lora's triumphant abrazo. And we're going to do Si Se Puede on 3. 1, 2, 3. Si Se Puede! Wow. Down by the bay, near the iglesia and under the bridge, we paint the story of how we fought for our park with a rainbow of color. And we paint other stories. Some happy, some sad, all ours. Paint dribbles down my arm as I smear it across the gray concrete wall. With every brushstroke, I tell my story too. Once the paint has dried, my barrio and I raise our flag. We build a kiosco, somewhere to gather, play music, and dance. We name this place Chicano Park. And on 3, we're gonna do Hasta la Bahía. 1, 2, 3. Hasta la Bahía! And that's Barrio Rising.
Thank you so much to Maria and Magdalena for the presentation and for sharing Barrio Rising with the world. Such a beautifully written story and really beautifully illustrated. So thank you so much. We're going to open it up to questions. We have questions coming from all of you. We have a microphone, so if you have questions, ask your teacher. We also have questions coming from the live stream. So all of you who are watching out there, if you have questions, go ahead and submit through YouTube. And then we have some pre-recorded questions. And we're going to start with our first question from one of our students here.
Hi, my name is Bailey. I'm from Jones Elementary. I'm in 4th grade. I have a question for you. How long did it take you to make this book?
So that's a great question. It was how long does it take me to write the book? And it took me about 10 years to write the book. Yep. From idea to the day that it was published, it took 10 years.
Yeah, and I'll say as an illustrator, when I get asked this question, most people guess and they say it's, 30 days or 14 days. It took me about almost 2 years to illustrate the book, about a year of just research, and then another year of drawing, getting edits back, and then painting and doing all the final artwork.
Is that a lot longer than you all thought? Some of you might not even be 10 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, we're waiting for some other questions to come in. If you have a question here at Marston, ask your teacher, and there's a microphone at the front. Come stand at the microphone, and then we'll take some questions from the live stream as well. I'll play a couple of other questions that we have pre-recorded. It is, I think, 4 questions, and they're all around inspiration. So I'm going to play them back to back, and then Maria and Magdalena can answer about the inspiration behind the book.
Hi, I'm Mariana from Chesterton Elementary. My question is, what made you decide to write a book about your experience, and what kind of emotion did you feel as you were writing it, especially about your culture?
Hello, my name is Evie, and I am a fourth grader at Sprickles Elementary, and I would like to ask you this question. You said that where you live has some environmental issues. Did that inspire you to make the book Barrio Rising?
My name is Sophia Berrigan. My grandfather, Ernesto Bustillos, was the founder of Chicano Park, and I was wondering, what was your inspiration for writing this piece of history as a children's book?
And there's one more.
Hi, I'm Lena. I'm from Jones Elementary, and my question is, what inspired you to write the book?
That is one of my favorite questions to answer because there's a few inspirations behind Barrio Rising. The first one, like I mentioned, was that I grew up not seeing myself in a book. And when I learned the history of Barrio Logan and knowing that I had, lived in this, beside it for so long and not knowing, I had to write about it. The second inspiration that I have and the interactive nature of Barrio Rising is I wrote it for social capital. Now, let me explain what I mean by that. I mean that I want people or children that were like me to see that their community has a long history of resistance and resilience, and that they can reference that book to see what people can do when they come together and change things. So I want you to take that book and be like, we can change something in our neighborhood because I saw how they changed it in this neighborhood. And that's my biggest inspiration for Barrio Rising.
Okay, let's take 2 questions from our audience here. Come up to the mic and just say what school you're from and then ask your question, please.
Hi, my name is Avery. I'm in first grade from Jefferson Elementary. When did you write Barrio Rising?
When did I write Barrio Rising?
Yeah.
So I wrote the first draft in 2014. And the first draft was actually a biography of Laura Rodriguez. And I ended up changing it a lot to what Barrio Rising is. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have one more question from our audience.
Hi, my name is Alessandra. My question is the book fiction or nonfiction?
That is a great question. The book is historical fiction. So while it's very much based in reality, I did make some things up. Elena's not a real character. And just because of the nature of writing a picture book, you have to expand and contract certain portions of time. So it is fiction, but it's based in reality.
That's a great question. Okay, so we have a question from one of our viewers, Maya H. from Kumiyai Elementary. Hi, Maya. The question for both of you is, what's the main message you want kids to take away from the story and from the pictures?
Yeah, I think something that I connected when I first read the manuscripts, I knew immediately that I wanted to illustrate it. And I think part of it is because it talks about the power of community and the power of art too. How we know Chicano Park now is through its murals and through the activism that came about. And so I hope when kids read it, they can feel empowered to make a change in their community, to be proud to be part of a certain community, and then to also realize that their stories matter and that your stories have the power to make change in your neighborhood.
I love that answer. So for me, the biggest takeaway would be ordinary people can do extraordinary things. And that's what I want you to take away more than anything, is to know that you as an individual, with all your imperfections or whatever faults that we may have, we are capable of so much if we try.
Beautiful. Okay, we have 2 questions on screen about your feelings with all of this.
Hi, my name is Ellie from Chesterton. Hi, my name is Ellie from Chesterton Elementary, and my question is, how did it feel to protest for what your community wanted? How did it feel? How did it feel when the park was finally built?
Okay. Oh, wait. One more, maybe.
Buenos días, me llamo Héctor Ayala, voy en Sparkles Elementary School. Te quiero preguntar algo de Barrio Rising. ¿Qué es lo que te gustó más cuando estabas escribiendo Barrio Rising?
Okay.
So those are some great questions asking about the emotions of Barrio Rising. And so for me, the greatest emotion in Barrio Rising is working and doing things through fear. You had a lot of examples where Elena was scared, she didn't know what to do, but she found it inside herself to be valiente. And for me, the biggest message is that being brave means doing it scared. So even if your stomach hurts, if your voice is shaking, if you feel like you can't stand, but you still do that thing, you're brave. You're brave beyond belief. And that's the emotion that I really hope came through in Barrio Rising.
Yeah, I also want to add to that. I think sometimes anger is kind of frowned upon and not seen as a good emotion to have. But when I read Barrio Rising, I think you sensed a lot of fear, but you also sensed a lot of hurt, and how anger can be channeled through a really productive way through community organizing and through community power. And so I think I hope it validates kids who have those big emotions too.
Great. All right, let's take 2 more questions from our audience. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Shaylin. I'm from Jefferson Elementary. Why did the city want to build a police station in Barrio Logan?
That's a great question. And if we look at where Barrio Logan is, right underneath the freeways, it would have been a really good place for a CHP substation. But, you know, the community needed a park more, and they had been asking for it. So that's why they wanted to build a park there. Great question.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rin. I'm in first grade at Jefferson Elementary. How many books did you write?
So I wrote 2 picture books before Barrio Rising, made its way over there. But after Barrio Rising, I have 3 more books coming out. I have another picture book called Menudo Sunday. I have a novel in verse called A Sea of Lemon Trees, and another picture book called You Don't Have to Say. And Maggie has a lot of books as well.
Yeah, I have illustrated 8 books, 7 of which are out, and I have not written any yet, but hopefully I will one day.
Okay. We have a question from someone viewing for both of you. What's your favorite book that you've ever read?
Oh my gosh, I don't think I could pick just one book, but if I had to, it would be The House on Mango Street, followed very closely by Gabby, A Girl in Pieces. Those are the 2 books that are just foundational for me.
Yeah, I also loved both of those books, but I got to give a shout out to my illustrators. My favorite picture book is Where the Wild Things Are by Maurice Sendak. I was a very shy, timid kid, and so I loved reading stories about kids who got into trouble. And so all of Maurice Sendak's characters, especially Max and Where the Wild Things Are, he got into a lot of trouble, and I really admired that about him.
Such a great one. Who's read Where the Wild Things Are? Yeah, it's a favorite. Okay, let's take a couple of questions. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Viviana from Jefferson Elementary. Why did you make this book and how you feel it was you a kid?
So I wrote that book for a kid that loved to read, that was from San Diego, that was like me. So that's who I wrote the book for.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Valentina from Jefferson Elementary. How did you feel when you made the book?
When I wrote the book, I just felt like I had to get a message out. Like I had to let people know what had happened so they could feel the pride in their community. So more than anything, I felt pride, but I also felt nervous because I wanted to do my best. Because I knew a lot of people would read it and they'd be like, well, why did you do this? And why did you do that? So I was nervous and a little scared, but more than anything, I wanted to share the story. Did you?
Thank you.
Oh yeah, I was also very nervous. So I'm from Chicago, not San Diego, and so I felt a little nervous trying to get it right and trying to capture the feeling of this community and even just the way it looks and the historical accuracy. So I did a lot of research, which I hope helped those nerves a little bit. But at the end of the day, I feel very, very proud of kind of what we've done and getting to share it with you all.
Great, thank you. I'm going to play one of the questions
Hi,
here.
my name's Luna. I'm from Jefferson Elementary, and I want to ask what was your favorite part of this book?
That's a great question. And my favorite part is the part with the red and blue lights where we shout. I used to dream about that. And I used to dream about shouting it with people. And now to do it, oh my gosh, it's a dream come true.
Yeah, my favorite scene to illustrate and my favorite piece of writing in the book was when Doña Laura lays down in front of the bulldozer. That was such a powerful bit of prose of words, and it ended up being my favorite spread to illustrate in the book.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll come right back to you. I'm going to play one of our questions from here.
Hi, we're Nisi. Diego, and Giovanni from Sherman Elementary. Our question is,
why did the city choose to build a bridge or a freeway through our neighborhood in the first place?
And is this tied to racism in California? And specifically, I want to know about the Mexicans.
Good question. And so just to jump in a little bit of history here. When I was doing research for Barrio Rising, one of the most important books that I read was this book called Becoming Mexipino. And it was a book about ethnic identity in San Diego. And it talked about when we think of segregation, we tend to think of something like the Jim Crow South or something like that. But there was segregation in San Diego as well. Mexicans and other people of color, we weren't allowed to live in other neighborhoods of San Diego. There was racial covenants that prevented that. And so in a lot of these neighborhoods that went through that, there was freeways built through them in the name of progress, and nobody really knew that they could stand up to that sort of progress or demand some sort of compensation. So that's in learning all that, I understood where I came from because I lived in National City and I didn't understand why there was only certain groups living there. And so Barrio Rising helped me find my own place in San Diego. So that's the answer to that question.
Great question. Okay, come on.
Hello, my name is Sergio. I'm a student in Perkins K-8. What advice would you give us to stay connected to our community's culture or our community's history?
That's a great question. I think to stay connected to our culture is to learn as much as you can about it. So do research, dig deeper, look beyond what's written, right? With Barrio Logan, we see that the history is on the murals, right? And then a lot of other times you'll find is that marginalized communities pass on knowledge through different formats. So it might be art, it might be songs, it might be cooking. There's history in all these things, and we have to look for them and dig for them and fight for them, right? Because sometimes it's not going to come easy. You're going to have to push through certain barriers to access that knowledge. So I think to have an insatiable curiosity about the things around you and just follow your excitement. If you're excited about something, keep digging and keep going.
Yeah, and I would also add to that, ask your parents, your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles. There's so many stories that they hold within them that maybe they won't share unless they're asked questions about it. And I think that's something that is right there in your home. So, yeah.
Such a great question.
Very good.
We have a student from Mountain View that wants to ask both of you, would you both consider yourselves change makers?
Yes, and I mean, it feels like kind of like a kind of like blowing myself up to say that I'm a change maker. I don't know if I would consider myself that. More than anything, I consider myself a storyteller. So I know that my job is to tell stories, especially stories that have been hidden, to a wider audience. So I don't know if I would call myself a change maker, but I would definitely call myself a storyteller.
I would definitely call Maria a change maker. If she won't say it herself, I'll say it. You're a change maker. And yeah, I think all artists, anyone who tells stories or makes art has the capacity to do that. But I think, giving yourself the title feels awkward because that feels like you've reached an end point. And I don't think that there's ever an end to that. I think, even as writers and artists, we're continually trying to find ways to make our art more widely available to people, to make it, just to motivate change even more. So it's a continual process. Yeah.
Question here.
My name is Reese from Sandberg Elementary. I have a couple questions for you. Is the Chicano Park the same as it was when it was first built? Do the paintings on the pillars stay the same or do they change?
Watching the documentary on Chicano Park, if you haven't seen it, you should really look into it. The murals have changed a lot, and they've been updated and they're continually maintained by the wonderful people that work down there. So they have changed, and they are very different from what they originally were. So yes. Go ahead.
How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
Hello, my name is Cortez Rochelle. Now, what do you think about gentrification? How do you think it will change not only the community for Barrio Logan, but also the history? And yeah.
That is such a great question. I'm glad that you brought that up. So as a San Diegan here myself, I feel the effects of gentrification. It's driving out people from places that they were born and lived, and they can't afford it anymore. And I think that it's a conversation that we all need to have in San Diego, but statewide and nationwide, because housing is a human right. We all deserve to live in a house and be safe and clean. And if you want to be in the community that you lived in, that should be something that is possible. So there's a lot of issues with gentrification, and not only that, but in Barrio Logan and in National City where I live, we still struggle with the quality of air. The air that has fine particulates and other things that can lead to negative health outcomes. So these are conversations that we need to have, but the people that live there need to have the bigger voice in those conversations, because gentrification is changing neighborhoods from what they were. And I mean, I don't think it's fair.
Thank you. Wonderful question. Okay, we have 2 questions back to back here about impact.
My name is Camille, and I'm in 4th grade. And my question for the Barrio Rising author is, what can kids do when they see something unfair happening in their community?
3, 2, 1, go.
Hi, I'm Leonora. My dad's uncle is on one of the murals in Chicano Park. Toby was one of the founders in the first car club, Amigos. I'm wondering how a young person like me, who is multilingual Chicana, can make an impact in my community.
Okay, those are great questions, and I think that's kind of what Barrio Rising was getting at, is how kids can make a difference. And I think if I'm going to give you some practical advice, would be that most likely there's someone in your community who is already doing the work or trying to do the work, and you should find them and join them in doing what the work that they're doing. Sometimes you're the first one, so you have to be the brave one to say something, to say, hey, I don't like this thing that's happening. I don't agree with this policy. And you're going to have to face people not agreeing with you. Maybe people don't see the way that you do, but you have to work through that And I think children and young people, I think you guys have like a strong sense of justice. You know what's right and you know what's wrong. And that's what I admire so much about young people, because you have that strong sense of justice. So I think that already within you, you have the power to make changes. Kids can do anything. Like, you guys are incredible, amazing people, and you have that power.
Yeah, I would agree. And also, change can also start at home. It can start in the very small. Your home is your community. Your school is your community. Your neighborhood is your community. And so change doesn't have to be like you are changing the city or changing the country. That takes a lot of people to do it. I think you can start with change in a very small way, and that can make a huge difference too.
Most definitely. Hi.
Hi, my name's Eileen from Alba. My question is, did you have a real person when you made Elena's chapter?
Can you repeat it?
Did you have a real person when you made Elena's chapter?
Oh, I didn't have a real person in mind when I created Elena. Elena's, I guess more than anything, Elena's an avatar for you guys to step into and experience what she experiences. So I didn't have anyone in mind, but I just had her in mind as someone who kids could take her experience and apply it to their own lives.
Yeah, and I did base Elena off of a photograph when I was doing research. There was a child in a photograph who was at the protest, and there was something about that photo that I wish I had included it in the slide, but she seemed, I think I really connected with what she said, that children have like an inherent sense of justice, and I sensed that from her in the photo, and so I kind of designed the character based off of this girl in the photo.
That's insider secret right there. Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, 3 more questions in total. One on the screen now.
Hi, my name is Santiago. I am a 5th grader at Oak Creek Elementary. I have 2 questions. Were you afraid when protesting? And finally, how would you compare racism back then than now?
Okay. So I have always loved the energy of protesting. When I was a kid, there was a apartment building going to go up next to our house, and I remember my mom and some other neighbors didn't like it, and so they started going door to door and like recruiting people to protest this thing. And I just remember like being a little kid, and I was like, wow, this is amazing! Like, you can change things by doing this. And then when I was in high school, I was a band nerd, and they wanted to start charging us $10 to be in band because you had to buy an ASB card. And I got so mad. I made a bunch of flyers and like I passed them out the first day that we came back to school, because I cannot keep quiet when I see something. But now that I am a grown-up and I have children, I'm a little bit more scared than I was before. We saw in 2020 with the Black Lives Matter protests and all that stuff, people are peacefully protesting, and yet there's, agitators that try to make it, into something that it's not. So I love protests. I love the energy of protests. I love the community of people, the feeling of people coming together. And as for the second question, how is racism different then than it was now? I think the biggest difference, it's still around us, but I think the biggest difference is that we have so much more communication than we did in the past. So we talk on social media, we talk, in person, we talk through books. And we acknowledge it, like not maybe the perpetrators acknowledge it, but we acknowledge it among each other, the experiences that we go through. And I think that's the biggest difference from then to now. But I'm sure I'm missing something else.
Yeah, I would say regarding racism, a lot of it is structural. It's always been structural. I think we're seeing a resurgence in language, which had fallen away and has come back. But I also think through the power of books and through social media, there's more tools, hopefully, that we have to combat it. But it's unfortunately still very alive and present. So, yeah.
Sadly true. Okay, we have one more question here. I know we're running short.
Hi, my name is Stella from Sandburg Elementary School, and I'm here to ask you a question. What effect does Chicano Park have on its community today?
So that's a great question, and I wrote in the back matter of the book is that Chicano Park has become the corazon of the Mexican and Mexican American community in San Diego, and that's what I see it as. Because when I go there, I'm so inspired, to see what has, happened, that I think it's the heartbeat for the Chicano community in San Diego.
Wonderful.
Did we have one?
Oh, one more question live? Yes.
Quick comment, and thank you to the Alba teacher for pointing this out, but Elena goes to a school called Lowell Elementary.
Yes.
And I just wanted to mention that we're here from Perkins K-8, which is what Lowell Elementary has been renamed. So we just wanted to thank you for having us, and all of these students go to where Elena used to go. So thank you for having us.
That's incredible.
So great.
One of my favorite stories from Lowell Elementary when I was doing research is that the train used to run through the playground at Lowell Elementary, and when it came out, like, the kids had to get out of the way, which I think was like kind of wild for elementary school. But yes, I love the history of Lowell Elementary, and I'm so happy that you guys came today.
You're famous, Perkins. You're in the book forever.
Yes.
All right. So thank you to Maria, and thank you to Magdalena. Let's hear it for both of them. We thank everyone here in person and all of you watching. Here in our space, we have Trace, Perkins, Jefferson, Riley, Rosa Parks, Claremont, and Alba. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for your participation. These are all of our students in schools and our educators, which I just have to shout out educators because you all make this happen. So thank you so, so much for all of your participation. But thank you to all of our students who were brave enough to submit their questions, and the questions were fantastic. Thank you very much to the Office of Youth Advocacy in the San Diego Unified School District, and to Dr. Fabiola Bagula for the intro video. And Arts Bus Express, I know we have some representatives today. Thank you so much for all of your support. And thank you to the KPBS team for all of the hours spent making all of this happen in the live stream so that we could present this to everyone here at Marston, but also to all of you watching at home. Remember this URL, kpbs.org/onebook. This is where you can get more information and learn more about all of our books each year that are presented to the community. And on that note, I want to say thank you again. We appreciate you all, and keep reading. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Magdalena.